Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I extend a very warm welcome to my lecture on emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence has been a topic of huge discussion in the history of psychology as well as in management and also in all behavioral sciences. The concept emerged out of psychological research when two very well-known psychologists in United States, John D. Mayer and Peter Salovey, were carrying out their research on psychology, and suddenly they found two concepts are measuring such as emotional intelligence. When I look into these two concepts, although Peter Salovey and Mayer and Salovey, they tried to explore much out of it, but the real concept get popularized in the mainstream of society by a person known as Daniel Goleman, a person who was writing articles for Times Magazine, certainly explore the beneficial aspect of emotional intelligence. So, before going into the concept in details, I would like to introduce certain popular concepts that might be influencing or that might be the source reasons for the development of the concept of emotional intelligence. When you talk about emotional intelligence, there are two concepts basically emerging out of it. One is what I say emotions, and the other concept is intelligence. Is emotional intelligence consists of emotion or intelligence, and what is the interrelationship between these two concepts? So, when you look into the origin of emotional intelligence, we often talk about is it intelligence that is derived from out of emotions, or emotion has given birth the concept of intelligence? Probably some people say yes, there are a lot of reasons because emotion is the root cause of human survival. So, let us see first examine the concept of emotion. What is emotions? What are the different nature and functions of emotions, and what are the different applications of emotions, and what is the essence of intelligence, bringing intelligence into the domain of emotions? Then we will probably conclude about the emergence of the concept emotional intelligence. Well, when I examine the concept of emotional intelligence, very often I used to find these are certain concepts directly related to emotional intelligence. One is called emotion, intelligence, creativity, and wisdom. So, let us examine what is emotion. Basically, emotion has been defined as an inner conscious states that we infer ourselves and others. Emotions sometimes are called the private experiences. Sometimes people use the operational definitions like emotions are states within an individual that influence their behavior for the achievement of any kind of goals in their lives. Sometimes people or psychologists infer observable behaviors associated with the concept of emotions. Some people call it just a feeling, some people call it just a states within their system, and some people call it as an antecedent to human behaviors. So, how this concept is related to different aspects of human behavior, including the domain of intelligence, we are going to examine that. There are mainly three important theories exist in the whole domain of emotions, and that give us the impression how to understand the concept and what is the relevance of emotion in human life. The first theory came out of James Lange theory, which is mainly focusing on the activation of visceral bodily changes. If there are certain bodily changes, then we say that the emotion is acting on the individuals. So, this leads to the brain to interpret the visceral changes as emotional experiences. So, I used to quote one possible quotations in psychological concept that we are afraid, that is why we are running, or we are running because we are afraid. So, many times my students used to tell, sir, both are almost same, but actually they are not same. So, one is referring to the psychological perceptions and other one is referring to the visceral activity, that is completely physiological. So there are two perspectives exist here. One is psychological in nature, another is physiological in nature. Sometimes we are not psychologically afraid, but we perceive the threat, so therefore we start jumping here and there. But many times, even in front of fearful objects, people do not feel afraid, they are very excited. So excitation, I would not call, although it is a kind of emotions, but that does not create fear. So one is the psychological perception that shapes our emotional experiences, another is physiological activation within our body that also creates psychological fear. So psychology and physiology, they go side by side to shape human behavior in our daily activities. The second theory is called Cannon-Bud theory, which is mainly purely talking about the activation of the thalamus, a region in the brain that is responsible for emotional experiences. Activation of bodily changes in response to brain maybe send the message to the cortex regarding the emotional experiences. First the body gets excited, then shapes emotional perception. In the earlier one, first body perceives it as a psychological fear, then sends commands to different parts of the bodies. But there is another one which is little bit different from these two, that is called Satter and Singer theory. This theory postulates that unless until there is a cognitive arousal within human system, you are neither going to experience any emotions or you are going to display any physiological activity. So cognitive arousal or activation is essential for perception of any kind of emotions. So that is how it is a activation of general physiobiological arousal leads to observation of environmental cues, and that leads to determination of the label to place on arousal identifying emotional experiences. Usually in our daily life we used to experience various kinds of emotions. Some people, when I ask what are different types of emotions, some people say, sir, basically there are two types, one is positive and another is negative. But when in our everyday interaction we ask people, how do you feel? Some people say, sir, I am fine. Some people say, I am not fine. But there are third category of people who just say, I am okay. Is okay a kind of emotions? No, this is actually not emotion, this is our level of judgment. So it is neither, does that mean is emotion neither negative nor positive? That is a topic of discussion, and that will probably will explore in the domain of emotional intelligence. Well, when you talk about various kinds of emotions, some we say positive emotions are joy, pleasure, happiness, smile, etc. Negative emotions are often considered as afraid, anxiety, tension, surprise and stress, and many others are there. But when you look into their effects on human behavior, they are enormous. Sometimes they makes you so happy, creates very balanced state of life, and sometimes if they creates pain and stress within yourself, that will completely destroy human life for its survival. So let's see, these are 7 basic emotions often observed in human life, and this is the study done by Paul Ekman, who has given these 7 basic emotions in human life: anger, happiness, fear, disgust, surprise, love and sadness. So now my question, next question is, which emotions do you feel most often? Yes, any response? Anger. Okay. Anger, sad, happiness. Yes. Surprise. Okay. So there are 2 persons saying anger. One is surprise. Okay. Please look into the questions. The question is, which emotions do you feel most frequently in your life? Okay. Love, happiness, sadness. Yes, Pratishta, what about you? Okay. Fear is also coming up. Happiness. Okay. Since morning to till now, which emotions has dominated your behavior? Okay. Surprise, yes. But mostly it is seen in our daily life that negative emotions dominates our lives. Even if you are happy, you hold it for very few moments, but then you start thinking, troubling yourself. Yes, what to do next now? I have this job to do, that job to do. So you keep on always exploring with a bit of stress, tension, anxiety, but happiness is very rare. And that is the root cause of, in today's popular psychology, what we call positive psychology. And emotional intelligence has emerged as an important concept of positive psychology to change, to bring change, to reshape human behavior, to nurture health, happiness and prosperity in human life. And maybe why I am trying to say, to examine the impact of emotion in human life. And what is the role of intelligence? Is it emotion influencing intelligence, or intelligence influencing emotions? So it is just like the relationship between feeling and thinking. So thinking is relating to your intellectual ability, feeling is relating to your emotional perceptions. So that is where I try to relate these two concepts. Emotion and intellect, they are highly correlated with each other. If they are handled properly, there will be prosperity and growth. If they are not handled properly, there will be stress, strain, full of unhappiness, pain, etc. So that is why study of emotion in the domain of intelligence is very, very important. Let's go further. Yeah, if you examine these concepts, particular kind of emotions, you will see that how these emotions are important in our life. When you experience anger, what is happening to you? When we experience anger, it is not only creating stress, it is bringing a lot of physiological changes within yourself. It's creating just like, firecrackers. It's firing all your nervous systems within your brains. You are in an excited zone, isn't it? So what happens then? The psychological pressure creating physiological activation, affecting all the bodily functional zones. Say for examples, like the blood rushes to our hands so we can fight. When you are angry, you start sweating. You just look at your palms, it's sweating. When you are under tension, when you are under anxiety, it can be expression of frustration. Say for example, Lala Thandu is looking for a date for his synopsis presentation. He is trying hard. The first date was cancelled on availability of experts. Now second date he is trying best, and he is under a lot of tension, stress, putting a lot of activity, how quickly he can do his job. Okay, and when the date was cancelled, there was lot of frustration, isn't it? Yeah, lot of stress. Will I get a new fresh date as per my expectations? Lot of anxiety, loss of mental energy, confusion, embarrassment, jealousy, rejection, threats. So these are the possible outcomes you are likely to experience out of anger. It is one of the most dangerous emotions because it is energizing, and the more often we are angry, the less arousal we need to stay in this state. Anger builds momentum. That is the ultimate outcome of anger. it creates momentum, it pushes you further. So that's why people creates a lot of physical aggressions when they are in a state of anger or in angry mood. They are likely to violate other space, psychologically as well as physiologically. So this could be the possible consequences of anger, but if this is not managed properly, it can lead to many negative consequences that can demean you, that can defame you, that can reduce your image and self-esteem. Another important type of fear is concept of emotion is fear. So fear also causes a lot of changes in our blood circulations. When you are under a state of fear, blood also rushes to our arms and legs, so we can run or fight. Suppose you are walking in a midnight, suddenly you find group of people are coming towards you with a lathi sticks. How does it feel? How do you perceive the situation? How do you react? You are completely under a zone of fear, severe fear. So some people say, I will run away. Some people say, I will hide behind the bush. Some people say, bachao, bachao, cry for help. Isn't it? When you say out of fear, we display also helplessness. Isn't it? So that is how the emotion is shaping our everyday behaviors. It mobilizes us and forces us into fight, flight or freeze. Either you fly or you fight. These are two concepts that are related to the consequences of fear. It mobilizes us and forces us into fright, flight and freeze. It is connected to worry, anxiety, stress, tension, nervousness, panic, paranoia and phobias. Unrealistic phobias are developed within us. When you undergone a traumatic events, tremendous pressure, still the tsunami survivors are every day experiencing psychosis, unrealistic phobias, as if the sea is coming upon them when they are in sleeping mode. So it is coming out of fearness. It is connected to worry, anxiety, stress. It is sometimes that is expressed as anger. Sadness is also equally responsible for physiological changes in human behavior. Metabolism slows down, giving us time to mourn. It comes from the not getting what you want or a fear what might be happening to us. When sad, many people try to isolate themselves, and that is the root cause of depression. When an individual makes himself isolated and restricted to the four walls of his room, is likely to experience deprivation, and that will lead to depression. So the sadness can lead to creation of heavy depression in human life, unless it handled properly, unless it is handled with care. It can cause devastation in one's life. It is connected to depression, shame, disappointment, regret, guilt, embarrassment and insecurity. When you look at the whole gamut of emotions are multidimensional. I have just taken out some example here. The four components of emotions. Emotions sometimes considered as simple feelings, but they are subject to social situations. They are socially expressive. They are also related to bodily arousals, but emotion is endless. I used to tell, emotion cannot be threatful. Emotion is the only source of creation. You look at all these creative productions, whether it is a movie, a novel, a poetry, any kind of creative expression, it is endless. So that is how we say poetry is nothing but the spontaneous expression of powerful expression of spontaneous feelings, and that is endless. So all our creative energies that often comes out of our emotions, our emotional involvement. Then how emotion could be dangerous to human life? Yes, when you are engaged in irrational talks, irrational ideas, when our ideas are not systematically connected, then our emotionality takes over our rationality. That is the only side effects of emotions. Okay, the feeling, what does this feeling component say? Emotions are subjective feelings. The whole domain of human satisfaction, subjective well-being, happiness, health, all these are effects of the positive feelings. So it comes out of the perspective of emotion as a feeling. Emotions are subjective feelings, make us feel in a particular way. When things are happening as per your expectations, you are building up a positive framework, positive frame of reference. Your feelings are now cool, calm, composed. You are in a state of balance, what we call well-being, a state of well-being. But on the other hand, when you are in a state of anger, your feeling is something different. We call it as negative feelings. But when they are composed, we call it as balanced, sometimes creating joy, happiness, and pleasure. But when pleasure does not bring always meaningful satisfaction to human beings, but the calm and composed feelings with meaning can derive certain personal significance. When, say for example, you have done something and you are feeling little bit satisfied, that is where you are achieving meaning with personal significance. Emotional feeling that vary in intensity and quality. Sometimes when it also depends on the degree of variations based on the need of the hour. Is this work is essential for you? How much it is required for you? Or can you postpone it? So depending upon the need assessment, even our also emotional needs also varies from time to time. If you want to do, your emotional involvement is 100%, because it is important for your survival. So emotions are essential components of human survival. These are deeply rooted in our mental processes. Just now I say, how do you label the importance of experience of a particular emotions? Why you are feeling sad? Can you ask these questions? Am I really sad? Who is making me sad? How can I turn it into happiness? These are three questions that will change the whole perspectives. So when you try to label, is it really affecting me, or I am just interpreting that it is affecting me? So that labeling requires a lot of mental dialogue and discussions. So and then you can change the perspective of feeling emotions. The another perspective is what we call the bodily arousals, the biological activations. I am running because I am afraid, or I am afraid and that's why I am running. Why should I feel afraid? Why should I run? Can I stay calm and composed even if I am fear? So many times the decision that we take at the internal level, the cognitive level, that plays a very important role in the experience and expression of emotion. That will decide whether there will be biological activation or psychological comfort zone. Automatic and hormonal systems are also gets affected when there is a activation zones. When it has been also, there are a lot of research coming up that stress has been one of the important reason for cancer. But happiness or smiling or joy has been considered as one of the psychological best medicine for the cure of cancer. How come? Because it protects our immune systems by creating a positive feelings. So when you are in a positive feeling state, that is creating a protective zone for your enhancing for your immune systems in the body. So that is why nowadays positive psychologies are also emerging in a big way in the field of this cancer disease treatments. So that's why we call as say in psychological term, prevention is better than cure. Bodily arousal also prepare and activate adaptive coping behavior during emotions. If your body is too much aroused, you can control an emotion. It is likely to blast on others. But if the bodily arousals are within control, that if you are able to control your bodily aggression, that is nothing but you are applying your coping mechanisms. It is acting as a coping behavior because you are controlling your body activation. Your biological activation is under control. So that means that is making you emotionally balanced, projecting a good self-image towards the outside world. The body prepared for actions. Yes, somebody has hurt me in front of all. Say for example, Subhang is there and she said something to her friend Itisri, and now Itisri is super hurt. Psychologically, she feels highly insulted. Then what will happen? If she controls, okay. If she says okay, she is junior to me and I can pardon him, or I can tolerate this and I can tell her for modifying this or that. But if she feels so much excited, creating a lot of bodily arousal, taking the insult into the highest level of offense and reacting heavily, resulting in slapping on her face. That may happen because human anger, you never know where, in which direction it is moving. But if you are bringing little bit intelligence to this concept of emotional, into the domain of emotional arousal, probably you could control and display a better matured behavior. So that is how it prepares body to respond to outside world and respond as for your control. It alert postures, clenched fist. There are many other concepts are related to this framework, like purposive component. Is there feeling? Does feeling has any purposive component? Yes. It gives emotion its goal directed force. Emotion is essential for achievement of any kind of goal. When we discuss about emotion, there is another popular concept that automatically will come to discussion, is called motivation. So emotion and motivation, they are just like two sides of the same coin. They go side by side. Without emotional arousal, your motivation will not be displayed. Without emotional arousal, motivation will go into the deep chamber of freeze. It will freeze itself. So that's why we often say that too much arousal and too less arousal is dangerous for human survival or maintaining optimum motivation. Optimum emotional arousal is actually best for maximum motivational appraisal, or what you call achieving optimum performance. So your emotional feeling, what you call stress or anxiety or happiness or joy, whether it is positive or negative, it should not be neither too high nor too less. It should be optimum, and that will decide how your body copes with that situations. Second is motivation to take actions. So that's what we just discussed. Emotion directly links to the concept of motivation in order to perform any kind of action. The next is the purpose of emotion is to cope with emotion causing circumstances. Many kind of emotional situation creates problem for human survival. So how you cope with those kind of there are destructive emotions, there are constructive emotions. If you are positively dealing with the negative or destructive emotions, probably you can come up with the best creation of the world. Why people then benefit from emotions? Because emotion has many things to do with creative creations. When you control them, when you channelize them in right directions, you are likely to benefit from it. Social and evolutionary advantage. Emotional, if you look at the Darwinian concepts, survival of the fittest, emotion always also work over there. So historically it has been also seen there, any civilization, in order to survive in society, emotion is very much essential. If you feel though, no, this is not the right place that I have to live. So when you demean your survival, your emotional aspirations also goes down equally. It is the emotion that keep your zeal to live further, and that is why when depression takes over, the moment you feel the negative side of emotion, more of it in your life, the side effects will be much more. And the socially expressive component says that in order to survive in society, you should emotionally communicate. Sometimes you should show sympathy, empathy, care, concern about others. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for survival in this world. So, that is why the socially expressive component of emotion is very much important and directly in fact related to the concept of emotional intelligence, where we try to extract the concept of empathy. Empathy and sympathy, these are two concepts. They are derived from emotions which are socially expressive component. Okay, these are also important because it relates to your posture, your gesture, your vocalizations, facial expressions. If you are not comfort, you are giving a different expressions. If you are angry, you are giving a different expressions. But when you are happy and smile, you invite others into your comfort zone for dialogue, for deliberation, and opens the day for very productive outcomes. So, that is why the social expressive component of emotion is very beneficial for mankind. Well, these are some of the what we say emotional expression that displays different type of emotions. So, can you identify it? Any one of you? Surprise. Next. Okay. Yeah, you can say yes, sad, and this can be say also fear. Yeah. These are in fact taken from one of the study conducted in Japan. So that's why most of the figures are Japanese figures. So, but there are also, apart from the universal expression of emotions, there are certain emotions are very culture specific. Well, when you discuss emotions and its outcomes, we often have seen that emotion is the be all and end all of human life. You cannot survive without emotions in this world. So, I have considered it in two frames. One is illness in illness context, the other is wellness concepts. One is individual based, another is environmental based. So, how emotion is related to illness? If you are not feeling well, all the negative ideas will dominate over your life. You will develop psychological symptoms. You will develop psychological diseases like anxiety, tension, depression, and as you all know that 50% of human health is psychological health. And if you are psychologically not well, that will directly affect your physiological systems. So, the optimal functioning of the physiological system goes down and you suffer from many psychosomatic diseases. That is how I call it as emotion directly affect human health. Emotion directly affect human immune system, the biological, the psychoneuroimmunological concept. There is a concept called psychoneuroimmunological perspective. Immunological perspective of emotion. What is this? The role of emotion in the regulation of neurological systems in human body. So, more you experience negative emotions, more it is likely to affects our immune systems, and that is how it causes many high level diseases which are very rarely curable, such as cancer and many other systems. So, the main side effects or negative outcome is illness, medical problems, and yes, if you can regulate properly every day, making balance of a positive and negative and experiencing more of positive emotion in your life, you are likely to build up a good immune system, biological immune system within yourself. And once you express happiness, joy, pleasure and very positive behavior towards others, that will create a positive environment for others. That will create a state of wellness around you and around others. And that is how emotion is going to influence even building a very healthy atmosphere, not in our personal life but also at our professional workplace. And that is how I take it into the two important frameworks, that is called illness and wellness, outcome of emotions. Well, emotion and reason has been taken into consideration in the sense that if our emotional feelings are not connected systematically, they may not lead to proper thought processes, they may not lead to proper thinking. So, emotion generates ideas. So, the framework goes like this, that a particular kind of emotional feelings leads to generation of ideas, and early ideas are in fact in a very unsystematic ways. When you see dreams, many times you do not know what is happening because they are not systematic, and the moment you bring a little rationality to these frameworks of ideas, then you come up with certain systematic frameworks that builds up the rational thinking, giving rise to a creative production. Many times that is why you often say that dreamers are better achiever than non-dreamers. Why? Because if you read the life history of many the great people like Einstein, Newton and many other great thinkers, they keep on dreaming day and night. Why nobody else could achieve the theory of gravitation than Sir Isaac Newton's? Everybody is watching the fruit is falling from the tree, but nobody observed it. So, in order to come up with a creative creations, you need to explore thoughtfully. Thoughtful observation is very much essential. That is why we call powerful expression of spontaneous feelings. That requires to be done. That is where we bring reason to the domain of our emotions. Well, so reason means we apply logic, systematization with facts and figures, the basis of human intelligence. That is where the moment emotions are endless, very unsystematic, but the moment you bring little bit logic and rationality, then it turns into the domain of your intelligence, and that is where you derive the systematic way of your thinking, what we call intelligence. Intelligence has been considered as one of the important systematic thoughts. Very simple terms. Some people call it as a talent, some people simply call it as a skills, but what exactly it is? So, there are as many definitions as psychologists in this world, but some of them they define intelligence is derived from the Latin word that means to choose between and to make wise choices. Today, Spearman, G factor and Binet's theory of intelligence has been very popular throughout this world, and that would conceptualize intelligence as a computer program that could solve a wider variety of problems. So, Alfred Binet, who is a French psychologist, who in fact made use of that IQ test in classroom situations. Okay, we will take a break from here and we will continue after a short break.